Welcome to the Fathering Strong podcast, where we connect, engage, and empower fathers to be the best dads they can be for their families and communities. And now, your hosts are Bruce Stapleton and Pastor Eli Williams.
Well, hello, and welcome to this week's edition of the Fathering Strong podcast. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Bruce Stapleton, a father and a grandfather, and the owner of the Momentum Group and the developer and helper of Eli of everything Fathering Strong.
Yes, you are. And welcome, everybody. I'm Pastor Eli Williams. I'm a husband, a father, grandfather, author, pastor, and the president of Urban Light Ministries, which is the nonprofit that powers Fathering Strong. So good to have you along today.
Yeah, it's great to be talking about the POPs again. Every child needs a love of a POPs. We use that acronym. We've talked about that the last few weeks, where POPs stands for Protector, Order Keeper, Provider, and Stabilizer. I've got that memorized pretty good now. So in last week's episode, we explored Order Keeper. So this week we're going to look at what it means to be a provider. So Eli, why don't you start us off in some of the things you talked about in your blog post this week?
Yeah, in my many years of work with fathers, Bruce, I've witnessed the heartache, the frustration, even the anger of non-custodial fathers who are struggling to pay child support, while at the same time being hindered by their child's mother to provide them with access so that they could spend time with their child. So this is kind of personal for them and for me. In my state, which is Ohio, the enforcement of child support orders and the enforcement of parenting time are totally different things. They're not connected. In other words, one has nothing to do with the other in our state. One is administered by the Department of Child Support Collection. That's not the official name, but you know what I mean, the Child Support Agency. They're charged with collecting child support. That's what they do. And so honestly and legally, they don't have anything to do with anything else that has to do with that father, such as his access to the children, his ability to co-parent those children. That comes under the purview of family court or domestic relations court, whatever it's called in your particular state and county. So that results in or makes for a very difficult situation for the non-custodial parents, whether they're mothers or fathers, if they don't have custody of the children. That has nothing to do with their child support order, how much they owe, and that sort of thing, and their ability to even see their children. So that makes for heartache, and sometimes the fathers are treated by those particular mothers and by the system as an ATM. Let's just get the money from him, and you are not obligated to him for that child's relationship with him, if there is any at all. So it can be a heartbreaking situation. I can't tell you how many phone calls in the past I've received from the mothers of these men. Sometimes it's the new wife of this man, or whoever they're in a relationship, calling, just begging, pleading for help because their friend or their son is so upset, he's so hurting because he can't see his kids, and yet he's got this child support order or multiple orders. So it gives special meaning to this idea that fathers are more than just their money. There are other things that a father brings to the relationship with the child in terms of resources, and we're going to talk about some of those things here today. So it's a very important topic, and I'm glad you tuned in for it. And we'll cover some of this, but there's a whole lot more to it, and you can find more on our blog.
Yeah, as we continually do social listening and try to identify what are some of the top topics out there for fathers, this one comes up all the time. And you can hear the frustration in some of those posts of how those fathers are really upset. So what are some things you've seen in your experience that those non-custodial parents can do in those situations?
Yes, and I'm not an attorney, so I can't give any direct legal advice to any particular father in their situation, but we can pass along information that we know, and we can point them in certain directions to get answers and to find resources that they need. And things are different. The laws are different in different states and counties, so I wouldn't presume to be able to get too much into the technical aspects of it. But there are some things that we can say to inform fathers and to encourage them, generally speaking. And the number one thing I would say to any father dealing with a situation like this is pay your child support.
Yep.
Pay what you
Yeah.
owe, pay it on time, because it won't help your cause to get behind on that and end up, in jail and losing your driver's license and all the other things that can happen. That really does not help your case. So pay your child support. If you want to get your child support reduced, there is a way to make that happen through the administrative process of your child support collection agency. So that's number one, pay that child support.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and as we continually talk about the different things as it relates to fathers being stronger and better fathers, we always talk about there's more than financials. There's more. They've got to spend the time. We talk a lot about reading with your child, and we bring up a lot of those. And in this week's post, you go through some of those other ways that fathers can really be better and stronger dads, other than just being the ATM financially. What were some of those other resources and things that you mentioned in the blog post?
Yeah, we'll dig into that a little bit. Let me say one more thing about what fathers can do. Aside from paying your child support, you can take some steps toward getting visitation time with your children through the court system. Apply for a hearing so that you can sit down in front of a magistrate or judge or whatever, and you can make your case as to why you should be able to spend time with your children. And of course, the child's mother would be subpoenaed to be there. She can show up or she cannot show up, but you show up and make your case and plea for a visitation order, or we prefer to call it parenting time order, which then orders that mother to comply with what the court has set as the particular time and the frequency of which you can be with your child. So just wanted to make sure I threw that out there. See a lawyer if you can afford to hire a lawyer, but you can also do it pro se, as they say in the legal world. You can do it without a lawyer. It takes some work. You've got to be serious about it, but you can do it. Just go to your family court. You might be able to even get online the paperwork that you need to fill out. There's usually a fee. That's not very much of a fee, but there is a fee that you have to pay in order to get this hearing. But that would be a first step to take in trying to establish your time with your child. Now, when it comes to these resources that a father brings to the table, besides just the money aspect of it, it's a fact that children need their fathers, because he brings to the table or to the relationship things that can be good for that child's well-being when it comes to their emotional health, their social life, recreationally, educationally. We're going to talk about the familial nature of the resources that a father brings. There are spiritual needs that a child has, and other non-financial kinds of resources that a child needs. And I like to start with the emotional needs of children. One of the reasons I start there is because it is so critical, and also because this may be an area that many fathers struggle with. Us guys, we're not typically known as being as open and as empathetic as females. It's not always true, but often it's the case that we fathers are more closed off. We're not as verbal, and often we men are not as emotionally involved as our children need us to be with them. So a dad's emotional presence, his availability to his child is really priceless. And that means being truly present emotionally, which requires actively listening to our child, not just, listening with one ear and doing something else. No, eye to eye, face to face, both ears, really listening to your child, being able to empathize with what they're feeling at the time. That means we're able to put ourselves in their place, in their shoes, to kind of see things from their perspective and to feel what they are feeling. It's real important, dads, for us to be available in that way so that our child really can sense that we are with them, that we understand what they're feeling, and that we care. So that means setting aside all distractions. We like to talk about this. You've heard us talk about it before. Just putting everything to the side, whatever would cause your attention to be taken away from your child in that moment, so that you can be 100% focused in on them. And that then tells that child, it communicates to that child that you are sincerely interested in their emotions, what's going on with them right now, that you're trying to feel what they are feeling. This is so important, and not just for girls. Boys need it as well. So emotional availability is I would rank, very high up there on the kinds of things that the father brings to the relationship that has nothing to do with money. Also, similarly, it's validation and support. This is very related to that. Fathers can and we should provide to our children a safe place, a nurturing environment. When they're with us, they should feel safe and that they're being nurtured, and that whatever their needs are, even their innermost feelings and hurts and questions are important, and that they don't have to worry about being judged for how they might be feeling or thinking. That creates a safe place and a great environment for children to be able to open up and to talk about what might be bothering them. So that validates them. That says, okay, what I'm feeling is okay. It's okay to feel what I am feeling. My dad cares. And I know that my dad is going to support me and help me through this. That's just absolutely priceless in your relationship with your child. So, yes, create that environment where your child can communicate their feelings, and that they know they are being valued, and that they are validated, and that they can find support there. Fathers can also model that kind of behavior by the dad himself. When we ourselves, dad, are open and we are willing to share our struggles, to talk about our challenges, to allow our emotions to be seen by our children, we are then demonstrating to our children what it means and what it looks like for even a father to be fully human and 100% relatable to them, and it demonstrates emotional intelligence, which we are learning more and more. I mean, in the world today, in society, we're learning more and more the importance of emotional intelligence. And a part of that is it's dads actually being open and being emotional in a healthy way with their children. And finally, I'll talk about providing encouragement. Fathers play a crucial role in celebrating their children's successes. When they achieve something, they just love to be patted on the back. They love the attaboys. They just eat that up. And the more you do it, the more you're going to see that they're going to do more of the things that got them the pat on the back. It's a way of fueling their fire. They long for their dad's approval, and when dad is there providing encouragement to them, even during their most challenging times, it really strengthens that bond between the dad and the children. So that's all a part of nurturance. It's all a part of showing support in a holistic way when it comes to the emotional needs of your children. Be there, encourage her. It's something that you will never regret as long as you and your children live.
Yeah, you talked about role playing last week a little bit in Order Keepers, and it just brings it out even more here as providers. It just becomes a key role in what fathers need to do, especially in today's society with social media. The kids are influenced so much by what they read and what they see, and they really need that father's involvement to help them do that. I tell you, I'm just so happy and pray every day that I'm glad I wasn't a father during the big social media phase. My kids grew up before social media, but they were, texting, and they were getting on specific apps, and you do have to somewhat keep control over that. So it's so important for a father to be involved in that, and as you mentioned, give those kids some encouragement. That really helps bring out the light in them and gives them some to follow other than what they read on social media. So we're going to look a little bit more into some of those tools and some of those ways that we can, delve into being a provider as soon as we get back from this break.
We dads and father figures need each other. We need a safe, non-judgmental place to share our stories, challenges, heartaches, and joys. Fathering Strong is just such a place. A new online community of connected, engaged, and empowered fathers. Learn more at www.fatheringstrong.com.
Welcome back to the Fathering Strong podcast. This week we're discussing fathers as providers. And that includes meeting a child's social development needs as well. And, being a present and engaged dad can help provide that foundation and really help them thrive. I know most of you out there probably have some stories. Eli, I know you have some stories. I've got a few, but I'll tell you some of the best memories I have of my dad are when we were wrestling on the floor, when we were doing things together, and those types of times where he was being a role model and also showing me the appropriate things to do, and most of that was done during playtime. We always seemed to have fun doing that. I read an article one time as I was growing up, and it was a story about a boy who continually wrestled with his dad, and his major objective in life was to beat his dad in wrestling. And as soon as he did that, though, he did that one day, became bigger and stronger, and as soon as he did that one day, he realized that it was over. Those fun times with his dad of wrestling was over. So I remember that story when I was wrestling with my dad one day, and I was, getting bigger and stronger, and I was about ready to pin him down, but then I said, no, I don't want this to stop. So I let him flip me over, and he pinned me down. So those times, I think, really bring out a lot of good memories. It helps, broaden somewhat of our social circles by, him bringing other people involved in different activities that we do. I knew we used to go bowling. We used to, do a lot of other activities with other families, and those things, I can still remember those today. So, and then as we did all of those things, he was always very positive and awarding in regards to, anytime I would do something well, he would always say, good job, or show me how to do something, and really built the self-esteem. I think that is critical, and is a thing you talked about earlier, and really helping kids understand what it is and how to act, and, they need those role models. So I think it's about, as you talked about earlier, just providing a supportive environment and just fostering that self-esteem.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, children need to feel good about themselves, which is what self-esteem is. And nobody can do that better than dads, I dare say. When a dad praises his child, It just does wonders for their feelings about who they are. One of the things I never really gave a lot of thought to when my children were small was how important recreational experiences are. Yes, having fun with your kids and doing things recreational is great, and I enjoyed whenever we did that, but I never really thought of it as a need. But the science is showing that actually children and families need those recreational experiences as a part of, a well-rounded life, helping children, grow up with those fun memories is really good for the children and of course for the whole family. And dads have a role in making sure that happens. So Dad, it shouldn't really be an afterthought. Those things should be planned out so that, every week or whatever the frequency is, there are activities that the family's going to do together with the dad involved and in part of taking the lead in that to make sure that the kids are going to have times during their family life that are fun. And there are lots of free and low-cost options for this. It doesn't require, going to the amusement park and blowing a whole bunch of money on expensive food and riding on rides you really don't want to ride on because it's for little kids, but you do it for the kids. I mean, all that's good, and when you can do it, when you can afford it, it's great. I'm not knocking it. But I'm saying that on a regular basis, there are things that you can do that are free or low cost, like game nights. I mean, things that you do right there at home or in the backyard, picnics in the park, going to the local libraries together and exploring different books. And there are lots of things in libraries beyond books as well, videos and other activities, computer activities and things like that. Your community, no doubt, has museums of one type or another, or many museums of different types. All those are good, free, low-cost options that you can spend time with your children. Do those physical activities. Some things require a bit more energy, but that's good. Like going on hikes. I just love going hiking. Now, I don't mean like, the pros do it with the backpack and, everything. You're going to be out all day. I don't mean that. I mean, that looks like fun, but it's not something that I ever did and probably will never do at my age. I just mean walks through the park. Just find a forest and just hit the trail. Such fun to just take your time and notice things. Make sure the kids are noticing things. The plant life, the insects, the birds, the different kinds of trees, and all of that. Those are really fun things that are a bit physical, but that's important too. Bike rides, have a frisbee throw contest. There are now, we have golf courses, but now there are frisbee courses. I'm not sure what they call them, but they've got these things set up like you would in golf, and you're aiming for those things, and it takes you through a course like a golf course, and you're trying to land your frisbee in a certain spot in a certain basket in order to rack up the score. So there are things that actually sounds like a lot of fun that you could enjoy doing with your children, again, at low cost and maybe even free. Lots and lots of things you can do, dads, that can create some great memories for you and your children, and it helps you to fulfill your role as a provider for your children's recreational needs. So there's a lot more on this, and I invite you to check it out with this week's blog on fathers as providers.
Yeah, those are good suggestions. And as you read some of the materials, and I know one of the best things they talk about is camping. Go out camping with families. You really learn a lot. All those different things you talked about in going hiking, you sort of take it up another level because now you're out in the wilderness and you got to cook and you got to figure out how to pitch a tent, and you haven't done any of those things before. You can get either really close or, you can get some interesting conversations within the family. And now I never did that as a family, but my dad actually was a scoutmaster. So we did a lot of camping and learned a lot. And there's a lot of life skills you learn through going through all that. So those are good suggestions. So we're also going to start looking at how a father can be a provider in regards to a child's educational needs. And we'll talk about that when we get back from the break.
Do you know a new father who could benefit from a basic introduction to healthy fathering principles? POPS 101, a free online course consisting of 4 one-hour sessions in English or Spanish, could be perfect for him. POPS 101 lays out practical steps toward becoming the protector, order keeper, provider, and stabilizer his child needs. Learn more at urbanlight.org.
Welcome back to Fathering Strong Podcast. We're talking now about providers, and we're going to dive a little bit into some of the educational development needs that children have and how a father can really help adapt and build those. And we talk about this in a number of different podcasts as we go through about the importance of a father being, a role model and spending time with their children. And the best way to do that is read to them. Start reading to them every night as soon as they're newborn, and that helps them learn to read. It's about spending time with them. It helps them, encourage their curiosity by playing different games, building puzzles. There's a lot of board games out there that you can play that, really teach a lot of good skills and, provide some good questions that they don't understand that you have to walk them through. I can't tell you how many times we played Monopoly, and I always wanted to get Park Place and some of those other big ones, that you learn a lot by spending that time with your dad or your family, putting those things together. And then my only, other piece of advice from the blog post that we looked at this week was, just stay informed of what's going on in the child's advancement in their school. Stay involved, understand what's happening, attend those parent meetings, just continue to understand what's happening in the schools. We talked a little bit about order keepers last week, about a bunch of dads working together in different high schools to really, keep those high schools in order. And not only does it do that, but it also shows the kids that the dads care. One example that continually pops in my mind all the time is I can still remember the day I was in the 4th grade, and this was parent visitation day where your parents could come into your classroom, and my mom and my dad walks in, and I was sort of surprised that my dad walked in. He actually worked in New York and had to commute to get to work, but he came in that day, and I was surprised he came in. And I can remember that as he walked by me, when he was leaving, he took his hand and rubbed my head, and I was probably the most embarrassed kid in the room at the time because my dad did that. But years later, I'm thinking about that, and because he did that, it's a clear memory that I have that he actually had to take a significant amount of time to come to my classroom, and to sit there. And I mean, that was a major thing. And you really don't know how much you really appreciate that until years later. And so those things that you do out there, dads, your kids remember, trust me. I mean, they'll remember it for their life. And those positive kinds of emotional encouragements really pay huge dividends in the end.
Yeah, and it's something else that sometimes is forgotten or maybe never even thought about, especially in those cases where the father of the child doesn't live in the same home for whatever the reason. Maybe it was a never married situation, or a case of the two have gone their separate ways, and the mom has a different man. Perhaps she's married, and perhaps he's married to a different woman, but they've got this child together. And sometimes what we forget is that child still needs his dad and his father's family. Those relationships are important. And when that child is denied access to the paternal side of his family, that child really has half of the resources that they really need. Half of the relationships, the family relationships that they should have. So it's important that both parents work hard to make sure that their child has relationships with both sides of their family. Now, it is always the possibility that there's somebody on one side of the family who is just not a good person to be around for whatever the reason. That does happen. I'm not saying that a child should be forced in a situation like that. But generally speaking, a child needs to have a sense of who they are, a sense of identity, of knowing their grandparents on both sides of their family, of knowing their uncles and their aunts and their cousins. It gives them a sense of belonging and also a stronger sense of who they are, a sense of self. It also can help provide diverse perspectives because different families have different cultures and they have different viewpoints. They have different personalities. They've had different life experiences. And your child needs to experience that from both sides of his family. That helps a person to be able to think in broader terms concerning viewpoints and personalities and cultures. When it's a multicultural relationship and one side of the family is one culture and the other side of the family is another culture, it's good for that child to experience both because it's who they are. It gives them a sense of who they are and can actually build their self-esteem of knowing that they have such diversity in their background and will make them sensitive beyond their own culture to others in the community. And it also increases the child's support system. I mean, it's good for a child to know that he's got an uncle on his father's side who is very supportive of him, or an aunt who's very supportive of them, and someone they can talk to, someone who's there for them in a time of need. Extremely important. So when a child is having a difficult time, is being challenged by something, whether as a little child, a teenager, or a young adult, or even an older person, they know that they've got family members that they can reach out to. That's good. It basically gives them double the love. In other words, every child needs all of their family. And why should they have to settle for only half of their family because mom and dad can't get along? That's not fair to the child. So it's good when parents can work together, can understand this, and facilitate each child getting to know their whole family, not just half of their family. So keep that in mind. Also remembering that, again, as I said, it's okay to limit or even eliminate any family relationships that are unhealthy or might cause the child distress.
Yeah, and I think society's really hurt us doing that now with the way transportation is and people moving away from each other. Back in the days when families were living together, the grandparents played a significant role in building a child. And now that everyone's separated, it just becomes so much harder and puts a lot more burden on the dad, on the father, to really make sure those things happen. So, yeah, so that's all we've got time for today. Let's make sure you take a look at this week's Fathering Strong blog post, either on urbanlight.org or on Fathering Strong. And we hope to see you again next week.
Yeah, thanks for joining us today. We do appreciate it. We hope something has been said that is valued by you. And we invite you to tell a friend about the Fathering Strong podcast, about the Fathering Strong blog posts. And again, that's at www.urbanlight.org, urbanlight.org. Subscribe so that you'll get notified and receive these blog posts weekly in your mailbox.
Absolutely. Yeah, next week we're on the Fathering Strong podcast. We're going to conclude the series with this episode as Father as the Stabilizer. So join us then.
My final thought is from the New Life version of the Holy Scriptures. 1 Timothy 5:8 says, "Anyone who does not take care of his family and those in his house has turned away from the faith. He is worse than a person who has never put his trust in Christ. So we have an obligation to be providers for our family. Our responsibility is to make sure that we are providing for our own. And that's far beyond just financial. May the Lord bless you as you give your child what no one else on earth can. That is your fully developed father love. That is Fathering Strong.
The Fathering Strong podcast is a production of the Urban Light Ministries with technical assistance from the Momentum Group, and Howard Rayford provides the theme music. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next week.
Fathering Strong is powered by Urban Light Ministries, a not-for-profit organization serving the needs of families and children for nearly 30 years. Your support helps us continue turning the hearts of fathers to their children while meeting some of the immediate critical needs of struggling families with small children. Contributions of all sizes are welcomed at www.urbanlight.org.